The Holloway house smelled like petrichor 3 days before anyone died. That particular scent of rain on dry earth, clean and ancient, even when the sky was cloudless and the summer heat pressed down like a hand over the mouth. Sarah noticed it first when she was 12, the morning before her goldfish floated belly up in its bowl, and she'd thought nothing of it until 3 days later when her grandmother collapsed in the garden, and the smell had been there too, hanging in the hallway like an invisible guest. Now at 37, Sarah stood in the driveway of that same house with her daughter Emma beside her, and the smell hit her before she even opened the car door. Rain on warm earth, though it hadn't rained in weeks and wouldn't for weeks more, the drought turning everything brown and brittle. Her father had called that morning to say her mother wasn't well, voice careful and measured in that way that meant things were worse than he was saying. And Sarah had thrown clothes in a bag and driven the 4 hours from Boston back to Millbrook, back to the house she'd sworn she'd never return to, back to the smell that meant someone was going to die. The house looked smaller than Sarah remembered, white paint peeling like old skin, the porch sagging on one side where the foundation had shifted over the years. Her father's truck sat in the driveway, covered in dust, and the garden her mother had tended so carefully was overgrown now, roses gone wild and tangled with weeds. Everything looked tired, worn down by time and neglect, except for the smell. That was as fresh and vital as it had always been, filling Sarah's lungs with every breath. Emma, 14 and resentful at being pulled away from her friends for the summer, stared at the house with undisguised skepticism. "This is where you grew up?" "Unfortunately. It's kind of creepy. You have no idea." Sarah's father appeared on the porch, and the sight of him was a shock. He'd aged decades in the year since she'd last seen him. His face gaunt, his shoulders curved inward like he was trying to make himself smaller. He raised one hand in greeting but didn't smile. "Thanks for coming," he said as they climbed the porch steps. "I know it's not easy." "How is she?" "Sleeping mostly. The doctors say it's just her age, her heart, the natural progression of things. But I don't know. There's something—" He trailed off, looking past Sarah at something she couldn't see. "There's something wrong with the house." Sarah felt Emma tense beside her. "What do you mean, wrong?" "Never mind. I'm just tired. Come inside. I'll make coffee." The interior of the house was dimmer than Sarah remembered, as if the light had been slowly draining away over the years. The furniture was the same. The floral couch her mother had bought in the 80s, the oak dining table her grandparents had given them, the family photographs on the mantel showing Sarah at various ages. Always serious, always slightly apart from the camera's affection. But everything felt different somehow. Smaller, darker, wrong. And the smell was stronger inside, concentrated in the hallway near the stairs, pooling in corners like water. "Do you smell that?" Sarah asked Emma. "Smell what?" "Like rain. Like it just rained," Emma sniffed. "I don't smell anything except old house." Sarah's father was already in the kitchen, running water for coffee. Sarah followed him, leaving Emma to explore the living room, and found him standing at the sink with his hands braced against the counter, his head bowed. "Dad?" "I smell it too," he said, without turning around. "The rain smell. It started 3 days ago. And I know what it means, Sarah. I remember what it meant before." Sarah's throat tightened. "Grandma. And your brother." Sarah closed her eyes. She didn't talk about Michael. Hadn't in 15 years. Not since he'd died at 17 in a car accident that should never have happened, shouldn't have been possible on a straight road on a clear day. But she remembered the smell in the house 3 days before, remembered trying to tell her parents something was wrong, remembered being dismissed as dramatic, imaginative, troubled. "The house knows," her father said, and his voice broke on the last word. "That's what your grandmother used to say. The house knows when death is coming. It warns us, gives us time to prepare, but we can never stop it. We can only wait, That's not real, Dad. It's grief. It's pattern recognition. We remember the smell because something terrible happened after, but that doesn't mean the smell caused it or predicted it. Then why does it only happen before death? Why not randomly? Why not when it actually rains? He finally turned to face her, and his eyes were red-rimmed, desperate. Your mother is dying, Sarah. The doctors won't say it in those words, but I know, and the house knows. It's been preparing us for 3 days. Sarah wanted to argue, to bring logic and reason to bear against this superstition, but the smell was all around them, undeniable. And some part of her, the part that was still 12 years old and terrified, believed him. Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway. There's a room upstairs that's locked. Why is there a locked room? That was Michael's room, Sarah's father said. We locked it after he died. Haven't opened it since. Can I see it? No, Sarah said too sharply. Let's get settled in, unpack, and then we'll check on your grandmother. Emma rolled her eyes but didn't push. They took their bags upstairs to Sarah's old bedroom, which had been converted into a generic guest room, all personality stripped away. Emma claimed the bed by the window, and Sarah tried not to think about all the nights she'd lain in this same bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe around her. The smell was stronger on the second floor, concentrated near Michael's door at the end of the hall. Sarah stood in front of it for a moment, her hand hovering over the doorknob, remembering the last time she'd been in that room. The police had already taken his things as evidence, but the smell had lingered. Not rain this time, but something else. Something chemical and wrong. They'd locked the door a week after the funeral and never discussed it again. Her mother's room was across the hall. Sarah knocked softly and entered without waiting for a response. The woman in the bed barely resembled the mother Sarah remembered. She'd always been small, but now she seemed to have shrunk into herself, become almost transparent. Her skin was papery, stretched tight over bones, and her breathing was shallow and labored. But her eyes, when they opened, were still sharp, still aware. Sarah, you came. Of course I came, Mom. Sarah sat in the chair beside the bed, took her mother's hand. It was cold despite the summer heat. How are you feeling? Tired. So tired. Her mother's gaze drifted to the window, where afternoon light filtered through thin curtains. Do you smell it? Sarah's heart sank. The rain smell. It's stronger today than yesterday, stronger than it was for Michael. Her mother's fingers tightened on Sarah's. I think it's soon. I think I don't have much time. Mom, don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. The doctors said, the doctors don't know this house. They don't know what it does, what it knows. Her mother's voice was barely above a whisper. I should have left years ago. We all should have. But we stayed, and the house takes payment for that. What payment? Mom, you're not making sense. Every generation, one death. That's the rule. That's what it costs to live here. My mother, your brother, now me, and then... Her eyes focused on Sarah with sudden intensity. Where's Emma? Where's your daughter? Downstairs, she's fine. Keep her away from this house, Sarah. Once this is over, take her and never come back. Promise me. Mom, promise me. The vehemence in her mother's voice startled Sarah into nodding. Okay, I promise. We'll leave as soon as you're better. Her mother smiled sadly. I won't be getting better, sweetheart. That's the point. But at least you'll be safe. You and Emma both. She drifted back to sleep, and Sarah sat with her for another hour, holding her cold hand, breathing in that impossible smell of rain, trying to make sense of what she'd just heard. Every generation, one death. A house that demanded payment. It sounded like madness, like the fever dreams of a dying woman. But Sarah had grown up in this house. She knew its rhythms, its moods, its particular brand of wrongness. And some part of her had always believed her grandmother when she'd said the house was alive, was watching and was keeping score. That evening, Sarah's father made dinner, canned soup and grilled cheese, comfort food from childhood, and they ate in near silence. Emma kept glancing between the adults, sensing tension, but unable to name it. "Why did you leave?" Emma asked suddenly. "When you were my age, I mean. Why did you hate it here so much?" Sarah set down her spoon. "I didn't hate it. I was just ready to go, ready for something different. But you never came back. Not for holidays, not for birthdays. The grandpa and grandma had to come visit us in Boston. And why?" "Emma, she's right to ask," Sarah's father said. "You left the day after Michael's funeral and barely came back. We never talked about why." "Because I was terrified," Sarah thought. "Because this house killed my brother, and I knew if I stayed, it would kill me too. Because the smell of rain has haunted me for 15 years, and I couldn't bear to be near it anymore. I needed space to grieve," she said instead. "Being here was too painful. And now I'm here because Mom needs me, because you need me. But after," she met her father's eyes, "after, I think it's time to sell this place. Move on." Her father nodded slowly. "Your mother said the same thing last week, said we should have sold it decades ago, that keeping it was a mistake. But I always thought if we left, Michael's memory would fade. Like if we weren't here to remember him, he'd truly be gone. Michael's not in this house, Dad. His memory is in us, wherever we are." "Maybe you're right." He pushed away from the table. "I'm going to check on your mother. You two should get some rest." After he left, Emma turned to Sarah. "What really happened to Uncle Michael? Nobody ever talks about it." "It was a car accident." "But what kind? How?" Sarah hesitated. Emma was 14, old enough for truth, or at least some version of it. He was driving home from a friend's house. It was a clear night, dry roads, no other cars, but he ran off the road and hit a tree. The police said he must have fallen asleep or been distracted, but they never found a real cause. "Do you think he killed himself?" The question hit Sarah like a slap. "What? No. Why would you say that?" "Because of the way everyone acts about it, like there's some secret they're keeping. And because you said the house smells like rain before people die. If the house knew 3 days before, maybe he knew too. Maybe that's why he crashed?" Sarah felt cold despite the summer heat. "Emma, your uncle didn't kill himself. It was an accident." "If you say so." Emma stood, cleared her dishes. "I'm going to bed. This place is giving me weird vibes." After Emma went upstairs, Sarah sat alone in the kitchen, staring at her reflection in the darkening window. She'd never let herself think about Michael's death as anything but a tragic accident. But Emma's question had opened a door in her mind, and now memories were flooding through. Michael standing in his room 3 days before the accident, staring at nothing, saying the house felt different. Michael asking their mother if she believed in premonitions, in fate, in knowing when your time was up. Michael telling Sarah the night before he died that he smelled rain everywhere he went, even in his dreams, even when he closed his eyes. "Do you think the house is trying to tell me something?" he'd asked. "Like what?" "Like it's my turn." Sarah had laughed it off, called him morbid, told him to stop being dramatic. And the next day he was dead, and the smell had vanished from the house like it had never been there at all. She went upstairs to check on her mother. The door was ajar, and she could hear her father's voice inside, low and pleading. "Just hold on a little longer. Please. We can fight this. We can leave, go somewhere else, break the pattern." "It won't matter, John." Her mother's voice was faint but clear. "The house has already decided. I can feel it in my bones, in my blood. I've felt it for 3 days now, getting stronger. It's not a warning anymore. It's a countdown. Then we call an ambulance. We get you to the hospital now. And die there instead of here? What difference does it make? At least here I'm home. At least here I'm with family. Sarah pushed the door open. Both her parents looked at her, and in that moment, they seemed ancient, worn down by years of living in this house, of carrying its secrets. "Tell me the truth," Sarah said. "All of it. What is this house? What does it do?" Her father looked away, but her mother met her gaze steadily. "Sit down, Sarah. It's time you knew everything." Sarah sat in the chair by the bed, and her mother began to speak, her voice growing stronger as she told the story she'd been carrying for decades. The house had been built in 1887 by a man named Josiah Holloway, Sarah's great-great-grandfather. He'd been a doctor, well-respected in the community, known for his ability to predict when his patients would die. People thought he had a gift, a medical intuition that allowed him to see death coming. But the truth was darker. Josiah had made a deal. With what or whom, nobody knew. Maybe the land itself, maybe something older. But the deal was this: the house would prosper, would protect the family living within it from external harm, would ensure success and security for generations. In exchange, every generation, one member of the family would die before their time. Not from illness or old age, but from the house itself, claiming its payment. "My grandmother told me the story when I was young," Sarah's mother said. "I thought it was just a family legend, a ghost story to scare children. But then my mother died at 42, then my brother at 19, then Michael," her voice broke, "and now me." "That's insane," Sarah said, but her voice lacked conviction. "You're saying this house is cursed? That it kills people?" "Not cursed, bound by agreement. Josiah knew what he was doing. He built protection for his descendants, but like all protections, it came with a cost, and that cost is paid in blood. Then we burn it down. We destroy it. Others have tried. My grandmother's sister tried to have it condemned in the 40s. The inspectors found nothing wrong. My uncle tried to burn it in the 60s. He ended up dead, and the house barely got a scorch mark. You can't destroy what's been claimed by something older than destruction." Sarah's father spoke up. "I never believed it. Even after Michael died, I thought it was coincidence, grief making patterns out of chaos. But these last 3 days," he shook his head, "the smell is real. The countdown is real. And tomorrow, or the next day, or the day after, your mother is going to die, and there's nothing we can do to stop it." "No." Sarah stood up. "No, I refuse to accept that. We're leaving. Tonight. All of us. We'll take Mom to a hospital in Boston, get her real medical care, and we'll never come back to this house." "It won't work," her mother said. "Michael was 300 miles away when he died. The house's reach is longer than you think." "Then what do you suggest? We just sit here and wait for you to die?" "Yes." Her mother's voice was calm, accepting. "That's exactly what we do. We wait, and we make peace with it, and we say goodbye. And then you and Emma leave and never come back, and maybe, just maybe, that will break the pattern. If there's no one living in the house, maybe it will starve, maybe the agreement will void itself. Or maybe it will just sit here waiting for the next generation," Sarah's father said bitterly. "For Emma's children, or her children's children." They sat in silence, the weight of history pressing down on them, the smell of rain filling the room like a presence. Sarah tried to think of counter-arguments, logical objections, anything that would make this nightmare make sense. But logic had no place here. This was beyond reason, beyond science, beyond anything her adult mind could accept. But her child's mind, the part of her that had grown up in this house, that had sensed its wrongness from the beginning, that part believed. That part knew her mother was telling the truth. "How long?" Sarah asked quietly. "How long does she have?" "The smell appeared 3 days ago," her father said. "With Michael, he died on the 4th day. With my mother-in-law, it was the 3rd day. There's no exact schedule, but it's always within a week of the smell appearing. So we have days, maybe less, maybe less." Sarah looked at her mother, who had closed her eyes, her breathing shallow but steady. She looked peaceful, resigned, almost relieved. And Sarah realized this was what her mother had been waiting for, had been expecting, perhaps for years. Living in this house, she'd always known her turn would come. She'd just been waiting to see when. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay in her old bed, listening to the house settle around her. And the smell was everywhere, stronger than ever, pressing against her like fog. Emma slept fitfully beside her, occasionally murmuring in her sleep. And Sarah watched her daughter and thought about generations, about legacies, about the sins of the fathers, or in this case, the great-great-grandfathers being visited upon the children. Around 2 a.m., she heard footsteps in the hallway. Soft, careful footsteps, like someone trying not to be heard. Sarah got up and opened the door. The hallway was empty, but the smell was overpowering now. Rain, and earth, and something else underneath. Something like decay. The footsteps had stopped in front of Michael's door, and Sarah found herself walking toward it, drawn by some impulse she didn't fully understand. She tried the doorknob, still locked. But as her hand touched the metal, she felt something shift, some presence acknowledging her. And from inside the room, she heard it, a voice she'd know anywhere, even after 15 years. Sarah. Her breath caught. Michael? You shouldn't be here. You need to leave. Take Emma and go. I can't leave Mom. Mom's already gone. She made her peace with it years ago. But you're still in danger. You and Emma both. The house is getting stronger. It's been feeding on our family for so long, it's become something else. Something hungry. Sarah pressed her forehead against the door. I don't understand. Why you? Why did it take you? Because I figured it out. I found Josiah's journals in the attic. I read about the agreement, about what he'd done, and I thought I could break it. I thought if I confronted the house, demanded it release us, it would work. But instead, a pause. Instead, it took me early. Punishment for trying to break the deal. So what do we do? How do we stop this? You can't. The only way to end it is to end the line. If no one lives here, if no one carries the Holloway blood in this house, the agreement becomes void. That's why you need to leave and never come back. And you need to make sure Emma never comes back either. Break the chain, Sarah. That's the only way. But what about you? What about Mom? What about everyone else who died? We're gone. We're part of the house now, part of whatever it's become. But you and Emma still have a chance. Don't waste it. The presence faded, and Sarah was alone in the hallway again, shaking, tears running down her face. She wanted to believe it was a dream, a hallucination brought on by stress and grief. But she knew better. The house was showing her the truth, the same way it had shown Michael, the same way it had probably shown every generation before them. She went back to her room and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, her mother was noticeably worse. Her breathing was ragged. Her skin had taken on a gray cast, and she barely opened her eyes when spoken to. Sarah's father sat beside her, holding her hand, and Sarah knew he'd been there all night, keeping vigil. She's going soon, he said, without looking up. Hours, maybe. Certainly before sunset. Dad, we need to talk about what happens after, about leaving this place. I know. Michael told you. Sarah stared at him. You heard him too? I've been hearing him for 15 years. He lives in that locked room, or what's left of him does. Sometimes he warns me. Sometimes he just cries. But he's always there, part of the house now, bound to it the way we all are. Then why haven't you left? Because your mother wouldn't. She said if she left, if she ran, the house would just take someone else faster. She thought, by staying, by accepting her fate, she was protecting you, giving you time to grow up, move away, build a life outside the house's reach. Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Is Grandma okay? No, sweetheart, Sarah said gently. She's not. I think you should say goodbye. Emma came to the bed, took her grandmother's hand. I'm sorry you're sick. The old woman's eyes fluttered open. She looked at Emma for a long moment, then at Sarah. She looks like you did at her age. Strong, stubborn, smart enough to know when to run. I'm not running, Emma said. I don't even know what's happening. Your grandmother is dying, Sarah said. And after she does, we're leaving this house and never coming back. Why? Because the house is bad. Because it takes people. Because we can't stay here anymore. Emma looked between the adults, understanding dawning on her face. The smell. The rain smell you keep mentioning. That's what this is about, isn't it? The house smells like rain before someone dies. Yes. And now it smells like rain, so Grandma is going to die. Yes. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, what if I don't leave? What if I want to stay? You can't, Sarah said, more sharply than she intended. You can't ever come back here, Emma. Do you understand? This house is poison. It's killed my brother, my grandmother, and now my mother. I won't let it kill you, too. But if everyone leaves, if no one lives here, what happens to the memories? What happens to Uncle Michael and Grandma and everyone else who died? Sarah's mother spoke, her voice barely audible. They become part of the house. They become what it feeds on. That's why you have to leave, Emma. That's why you have to live far away from here and have children and teach them to stay away. Break the chain. End the line. It's the only way to win. She closed her eyes and didn't open them again. Her breathing grew slower, more labored. Sarah's father started to cry, quiet tears running down his face, and Sarah put her hand on his shoulder. And Emma stood at the foot of the bed, watching death approach with the wide eyes of someone seeing it for the first time. The smell intensified. It was overwhelming now, like being submerged in rain, like drowning in petrichor. The room grew cold despite the summer heat, and Sarah could feel it. The presence of the house, gathering itself, preparing to collect what it was owed. Her mother's breathing stopped. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the smell vanished, sudden and complete, like a door slamming shut. The coldness left the room. The presence withdrew. And Sarah's mother lay still on the bed, her face peaceful, finally free. Her father wept openly now, bending over the body, saying her name over and over. Emma backed away from the bed, her face pale with shock, and Sarah stood frozen, because even though she'd known this was coming, even though she'd been warned and prepared, the reality of death was still stunning in its finality. They called the funeral home. They called relatives. They went through the motions of death's aftermath, paperwork and arrangements and dozens of small decisions that needed to be made. Through it all, Sarah felt numb, moving through the hours like a ghost herself. The funeral was 3 days later, a small graveside service. Sarah's mother was buried in the town cemetery next to Michael, next to her own mother, next to all the other Holloways who died before their time. After everyone else left, Sarah stood at the grave with Emma, and her father said, "I'm selling the house. As soon as I can find a buyer, I'm selling it and moving away. Somewhere far, somewhere the house can't reach." "Good," Sarah said. "That's good. Will you come back? For the sale? For closing everything out?" Sarah thought about it. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to run and never look back, to do what Michael had told her and break the chain completely. But her father looked so lost, so broken, that she found herself nodding. "One more time, to help you pack, to say goodbye properly. But after that, never again." He hugged her, and they stood together at the grave as the sun set. 3 generations trying to figure out how to end a curse that had lasted 5. They went back to the house one last time to gather belongings. Sarah was planning to leave first thing in the morning to get Emma away from this place as fast as possible. But as evening fell, she found herself standing in front of Michael's door again, feeling that pull, that need to understand. "Do you want me to open it?" her father asked, coming up beside her. "I have a key somewhere. I could let you see. I don't know if I should." Maybe it would give you closure. Maybe it would help you understand. Or maybe it would trap her the way it had trapped Michael. But Sarah nodded, and her father went to find the key, and Emma came to stand beside her mother, curious despite her fear. When the door opened, the room was exactly as it had been 15 years ago. Michael's posters on the walls, his books on the shelves, his clothes still in the closet. But there was dust on everything, thick and heavy, and the air smelled stale, unused. And in the center of the room, on the desk, was a journal. Sarah picked it up and opened it to the last entry, dated the day before Michael died. I know what I have to do. I've been reading about the house, about Josiah's agreement, about how each generation pays the price. And I've figured out the loophole. The house takes one per generation, but only from those who live within its walls. If I die before my time, if I become the sacrifice before I ever truly live here as an adult, then maybe it will be satisfied. Maybe it won't come for Sarah, or Dad, or Mom. Maybe my death will protect them. I don't know if I'm brave or just desperate, but I can't let this house take anyone else. I can't let it claim Sarah the way it claimed me. So tomorrow, I'm going to end this. One way or another, I'm going to save my family from the curse of being Holloway's. Sarah closed the journal, tears blurring her vision. He did it on purpose. The accident, it wasn't an accident at all. He killed himself to protect us. What? Her father took the journal, read the entry, and his face crumpled. Oh, Michael. Oh, my boy. But it didn't work, Emma said quietly. Grandma still died. The house still took her. Because Dad and Mom kept living here, Sarah realized. Michael sacrificed himself, but they didn't leave. They stayed in the house, so the agreement continued. His death meant nothing. They stood in Michael's room, surrounded by the remnants of a life cut short. And Sarah understood with terrible clarity what had to happen. Her mother's death wasn't enough. Her father leaving wasn't enough. As long as any Holloway blood remained connected to this house, the agreement would continue. She thought about her promise to her mother, about breaking the chain. She thought about Emma, about protecting her daughter the way Michael had tried to protect his family. And she made a decision. Dad, you need to sell this house to someone outside the family. No Holloways can ever own it again. And you need to change your name. Legally. Become someone else. What? Sarah, that's crazy. Is it? Michael tried to break the curse by dying. That didn't work. Maybe the answer is to break it by living, but living as someone else. Someone not bound by Josiah's agreement. Her father stared at her. You think that would work? I don't know. But it's better than just hoping the house forgets about us. She turned to Emma. You too. When you're 18, you change your name. Become Emma something else. Have children under a different name. End the Holloway line completely. Mom, this is insane. I know. But look around you. This whole situation is insane. The house smells like rain before people die. My brother killed himself trying to break a curse. My mother accepted death like it was inevitable. None of this is sane or normal or okay. So we fight insanity with insanity. We erase ourselves and start over. They left the next morning, driving away as the sun rose, and Sarah didn't look back. Her father stayed long enough to hire an estate agent, to put the house on the market, to pack up a lifetime of belongings. The house sold within a month, bought by a young couple from out of state who thought it was charming, who had no idea about its history, who moved in with plans to renovate and make it their own. Sarah's father changed his name to John Morrison, moved to Oregon, got a job at a hardware store. Sarah kept her married name, Reynolds, and made sure Emma understood she could never be a Holloway again, could never acknowledge that connection. The house stood in Millbrook, white paint still peeling, porch still sagging, looking tired and old and harmless. The new owners planted a garden, painted the shutters, replaced the roof. They lived there happily for 2 years. Then, one August morning, The wife mentioned to her husband that the house smelled odd, like rain, even though it hadn't rained in weeks. 3 days later, their 5-year-old daughter drowned in the bathtub. Tragic accident, the police said. Just one of those terrible things that happens. The couple moved out within a month, unable to bear living in the house where their daughter had died. The house sat empty for a while, then was sold again, and again. And each time, eventually, someone smelled rain. Because the curse wasn't bound to the Holloway family specifically, it was bound to the house itself, to the agreement Josiah had made, and it needed blood to survive. Holloway. Blood was preferred, was part of the original agreement. But in the absence of Holloways, any blood would do. Sarah learned about the drowning from a news article. She read it with growing horror, understanding what she'd done. By leaving, by breaking the family line, she hadn't ended the curse. She'd just redirected it. Now innocent people, people with no connection to Josiah, no knowledge of his deal, were paying the price. She called her father. "We have to go back. We have to fix this. There's nothing to fix. We're out. We're free." No one's free while that house is still standing. It's killing innocent people now. Children, Dad. It killed a child. That's not our responsibility. It is. It's a Holloway curse. Josiah was a Holloway. We're the only ones who can end it. And how do we do that? Sarah didn't have an answer. But she thought about Michael's journal, about his attempt to sacrifice himself, about her mother's acceptance of death. And she thought about agreements, about deals made with things older than understanding, about how such deals might be broken. She drove back to Millbrook 3 weeks later, alone. Emma stayed in Boston with friends, and Sarah told her father she was just going to do research, to look through town records to find some clue about how to end the curse properly, all of which was true. But it wasn't the whole truth. The house looked the same. Still tired, still worn, still carrying that aura of wrongness. It was empty now. The couple who'd lost their daughter had moved out, and it hadn't sold again yet. Sarah had a key, given to her by the estate agent, who remembered her family, who thought she wanted one last look at her childhood home. She entered in late afternoon, and the smell hit her immediately. Rain and earth and death. The house knew she was there. The house remembered her. "Hello," she said to the empty rooms. "I'm back." No response. Just the settling of old wood, the creak of floorboards, the ordinary sounds of an old house. But underneath she felt it. Presence, awareness, hunger. The house was alive in some fundamental way, animated by whatever Josiah had bound it to, and it had been waiting. "I want to make a new deal," Sarah said. The temperature dropped, the smell intensified, and Sarah knew the house was listening. The original agreement was 1 death per generation of Holloways, but there are no Holloways left. We changed our names, broke the line. So the deal is void. You have no right to claim anyone else. The house groaned, a sound like disagreement. "But," Sarah continued, "I'm offering you a replacement, a new agreement. You take me, one last Holloway, even if I don't use the name. And in exchange, you let everyone else go. No more deaths, no more claims, just me. And then you rest. You sleep. You let the agreement end." The air grew colder still. Sarah could see her breath misting in the dimming light. She waited, heart pounding, wondering if the house could even communicate, if agreements could be renegotiated with something that was bound by rules she didn't fully understand. Then she felt it. A presence behind her, and she turned to see a figure in the doorway, translucent, barely there, but recognizable. Michael. "Don't do this," he said. "Don't give yourself to it. It's the only way. You tried sacrifice. That didn't work. Mom tried acceptance. That didn't work. Maybe the answer is substitution. I take the place of everyone else," the house would claim. "I end it with me. You'll be trapped here, like me, like all of us. You'll become part of the house, and that's worse than death, Sarah." That's eternal awareness of hunger that can never be satisfied. But no one else will die. Emma will be safe. Dad will be safe. All the innocent people who might buy this house, they'll be safe. At what cost? Whatever cost it takes. Michael faded, and Sarah stood alone again, waiting. The sun was setting, painting the walls in shades of orange and red, and the smell of rain was everywhere. She sat on the floor, back against the wall, and waited for the house to decide. Night fell. Sarah didn't move. She felt the house around her, felt it, considering, felt the weight of Josiah's agreement pressing down, felt all the deaths that had come before. Her grandmother, her brother, her mother, that innocent child, all the unknown others across generations. So much blood spilled to feed something that should never have been woken. Around midnight, the house answered. The smell vanished. The cold dissipated. The presence withdrew. And Sarah understood. The house had accepted. One last Holloway, given willingly in exchange for ending the agreement. She had 3 days. 3 days to say goodbye, to settle her affairs, to make peace with what she'd chosen. She left the house and drove back to Boston. She told Emma she loved her, would always love her, but that she had to take care of some family business and would be gone for a while. She told her father what she'd done, and he wept and begged her not to go back. But she was resolute. She'd made her choice. She'd made her deal. On the third day, she drove back to Millbrook. The smell had returned, stronger than ever, and she knew it was time. She entered the house for the last time, climbed the stairs to her old bedroom and lay down on the bed where she'd slept as a child, as a teenager, where she dreamed of escape and freedom and a life far from this cursed place. She closed her eyes and waited. The end came gently, more gently than she'd expected. Not pain, but a gradual fading, a sense of being absorbed into something larger. She felt the house take her, felt herself becoming part of its walls, its foundation, its memory. She felt all the other deaths around her, Michael welcoming her, her mother reaching out, generations of Holloways who'd paid the price before. And she felt the agreement break, felt it snap like a cord pulled too tight, felt the house shudder with its ending. Josiah's deal, made in blood and bound by darkness, finally dissolved. The house was just a house again. Old, tired, normal. They found her body 3 days later when the estate agent came to show the property to potential buyers. Natural causes, the coroner said. Heart failure. Tragic, but not suspicious. She was buried next to her mother and brother, 3 Holloways in a row. Their shared name the only remaining connection to what they'd been. Emma inherited the house and immediately had it demolished. The lot sold quickly, and someone built a new house there. Modern, bright, with no history of death, ordeals, or rain that shouldn't exist. The curse was broken. The agreement was ended. The Holloway line died with Sarah, and no one else paid the price. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind is right and the moon is full, people who live in that new house report something strange. The smell of rain on dry earth, clean and ancient, even when the sky is cloudless and clear, and they wonder what it means. This impossible petrichor that fills their rooms, like memory, like warning, like the whisper of something old and patient that understands the world in ways the living never can, and they don't know, will never know, about the woman who gave herself to end a curse, about the house that ate generations, about the smell that still lingers in the foundation where she's buried, where she waits, where she keeps watch to make sure the dead stay dead and the agreement stays broken, a ghost protecting the living from what she became.